All right, we are back with my beautiful Bianchi. Fun fact about this bike: bikes don't hold their value very well. I got this piece of beauty for 160 quid on Facebook Marketplace. Um, if you're gonna go buy a new bike or you're wanting to buy a new bike, then out Facebook Marketplace and different places like that. Gumtree. These are all great places to try and find a good deal before you go and spend tons and tons and tons of money on a brand new bike from a big shop. God, I'm just realizing there's more issues with this thing than anticipated. Oh well, every day's a school day. That's fine, that'll do. That's totally good. Okay, right, so this video is about how to size chain. Now, one way to quickly tell whether or not the chain is sized appropriately on the bike you're taking it off is to shift it down into the smallest two rings. So if you have a bike that only has a rear derailleur, then just shift it into the smallest gear. This one. Smallest gear there, right? If you got two rings at the front, make sure it's on the bottom ring at the front. What you want to then do is look between the chain here and the bottom of the derailleur. There should be a little gap here, but you don't want it to be huge. If it's like this, it's way too short. I'm going to shift it up into the biggest and the biggest ring, and I'll show you something else there as well. Give me 2 secs. I'm going to have to put you down for a sec. Oh, wait a minute. That might actually be perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. Right, so we're going to go up into the big ring on the front, then up into the big ring on the back. Now, you can see that there. You look here, you can see that little light S shape. That should ideally probably be a little bit longer. Just like a link would make a difference to that. When it's in highest position here and here, it should be about 6 o'clock. So as in, it should be like around about the bottom. And that is around about the bottom. If I line you up with it, it's about the bottom. It's about 6 o'clock almost. So that chain's of a good length, but I'm probably going to make it like a link longer. Okay, so step 1, you got to get your chain. Now, in order to know what kind of chain you need, for most road bikes, most mountain bikes, unless you're looking at really high-end shit, you can get a regular ass chain. Try has some like T-type stuff. Shimano have a system called Q's where you can only use 11-speed chains on it. There are a few more things nowadays than there used to be that are really specific, but overall, by and large, if you have 9 gears on the back, you get a 9-speed chain. Like I said, there's a few caveats, but if you do have a bike that falls into one of those caveats, you probably paid quite a lot of money for it, and you probably pay someone else to repair it. I'm going to be honest. If you're paying 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 grand for a bike, you probably don't do your own repairs. But you might do, in which case you probably know what I'm talking about. Okay, so on this chain, it's got a quick link, which is very handy. And it looks like, give me a sec, looks like that. It'll have a little gap in it. It'll look a little bit different from the rest of the links. You can pair quick link pliers that look like this. This is just a cheap pair I got on eBay. And honestly, you don't need to spend a lot of money on these. You then squeeze. Come on, squeeze. Sometimes you gotta squeeze quite hard. Jesus. Give me a sec. Generally speaking, what would happen right now is you would squeeze and it would come apart. But, you know, I'm having a day of it today, so I guess not. There we go. Right. That's a real good quick link. I think I might keep that. Right. So when you do this, I'd hold on to the chain. Hold on to both sides, because otherwise this got a spring on it and it can just ping back. And if you've only got one quick link and you're in the garage, you're kind of fucked because you've lost the quick link. So let that come down there so that you're not letting the quick links fly about. I would then recommend putting these in a safe space. Safe space, guys. I have a little tool tray back there. I'm going to pop them back there. If you don't have that, little biscuit tin, anything that you have really will work. Now, what you can do is you can measure your new chain against your old chain if you're happy that the length is appropriate. However, I want this chain to be just a little bit longer than the old one, so I'm just going to measure it on the bike. The other thing this is good for is sometimes you buy a secondhand bike or your chain snaps and you throw it in the bin and you then go to a bike shop and you're like, oh, I need a new chain. And you don't know how long the old one was, so you just have to measure it. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So we got a new chain. First things first, I want to move this down so it's in the smallest gear. Now, there's a lot of different methods to this. There is big to big +2, which is where you wrap it around the big one, you wrap it around the big one, you bring them together, and then you add 2 links. I used to do that. It's a pain in the ass. I don't like doing it. I have another way of doing it that works for me pretty much every time, to be honest. I very, 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 very rarely run into issues with this method. Some guy, I used to work in another bike shop, and this guy was like, how do you measure chains? I was curious, because it's the first time I was working in a professional bike environment and not just slinging shit and see what happened. And this guy told me that he had a way of working out where he measured the length of the chains. I never seen this guy fit a chain, but he measured the length of the chainstay and did some calculation. And I was like, are you I didn't say this, but at the time I was like, are you serious? Nah. Right. But anyway, this is a simple way that works pretty much every damn time. So what you're going to do, that's on the bottom. This bit's a bit of a fidget sometimes. You're going to feed this part of the chain through the front derailleur. Don't worry about if it's on the chain ring or not. It doesn't really matter at this point. If you put it on the chain ring, it'll kind of hold it in place. Be prepared for the chain to tangle. Kind of just what chains do. It's what they want to do. It's their purpose in life. They want to tangle and annoy you. Now, for the details. Take this side of the chain and put it over the cassette. Right? Put it over like that. See if I can move this to a better position so you can see a bit better. Can't really see so well. Right. So the chain is over the cassette. This is where it becomes important. Pretty much all derailleurs will have a little, this one conveniently doesn't have one. Usually in here, this is the derailleur cage, there will be a little tab, and you have to make sure that the chain is on the correct side of that tab. But what you want to do is chain comes over the cassette. It then goes round. It's going to probably fall off the freaking bike now. You can use your finger here to just spin it backwards and it'll pull it through, right? Now, if you're lined up in the right gear, this will probably just roll over the jockey wheel. These are called jockey wheels, if you didn't know. These little wheels here are called jockey wheels. So once you've got it there, oh, there's their little tab. You see that little piece of shit? Right, so sometimes people will fit a chain and they'll do this and they'll be like, oh, it's making a weird noise. I don't know why. It's because they've put it on the wrong side of the tab, right? So what you want to do is put that chain, I'm just going to do it real quick. Give me a sec. Put that around the tab. Now, I'm going to be honest. I'm telling you to do this. It just kind of takes a bit of practice and a bit of a fidget. But see how it is on the jockey wheel and it is behind the tab. It's not over it. Now it's out here. So now obviously the chain has to come out here. It has to come out here so that it then goes to the chainring. Right? So you fold that down. I'm doing this with one freaking hand for fuck's sake. And then you just pull around like that, right? So now we got to check that we're in all the right spots. So we're coming down here, right? Good. If we look in the cage, we're not fouling anything. We're on the correct side of the tab. We are over the cassette. We are crucially through the cage. Sometimes people put it on the chainring and they forget about the front derailleur, and that's a fucking whole thing. Right. Now what you want to do, I'm going to put you guys... Yeah, you're good there. Now you're going to pull the two ends of the chain together. Now this is where the clearance that I was talking about comes in. So to do this, you got to make sure that the chain is definitely on the chain ring, right? Make sure it's definitely on the chain ring. Okay? And you can see as you look through the chain ring that it is on the fucking chain ring all the way around. Sometimes people do shit where it's like here, no good. It has to be on the chain ring. You then got to line these up. Now, crucially, if you have a quick link, something you got to bear in mind is that you have on the chain, I'll show you real quick, this is an inner plate and this is an outer. This is inner, outer, inner, outer. Now, to get a quick link to fit, you need to have 1, 2 inners, because a quick link is made up of outers, like this, right? The outer plates. And that then slots into the inner. That's really tough to do with one hand, but you get it, right? The outer plate is going to go on the inner, so you need 2 inners, right? So that means that when you're lining up the chain to figure out how long or how short, you got to make sure that you match up 2 inners, right? So on this side, I normally just pick a side I'm going to cut. In this instance, I'm going to cut this side. It doesn't really matter, but I'm going to cut this side. This side is, it's all around, it's all good. So I want to line this up. Fucking broomsticks in my... Fuck out of here. And pull that tight so that these are lined up in a straight line like it would be if it was a together chain. You then pull this, because see, if you look here, you'll notice there's no gap between the chain and the derailleur. It's touching. You don't want that. It's fouling it. So this is, and the reason you got to check it in this gear is because when you're small to small, that is the... This fucking broom. Get out of my way, man. Goddamn. Fuck you, broom. Right. Okay. You gotta make sure you're in the smallest because that is the longest, the loosest position the chain's ever gonna be in. So you gotta make sure that it's not touching at that point, because if it doesn't touch at that point, we fine at all other points. But you don't want to have it too loose, because obviously if it's here, it's slack as, and it's gonna have shifting problems. It's gonna be weird. If it's too tight like this, you're not gonna get all your gears. Okay. So you want to make sure you have just enough of a little gap between the top and between the chain and the derailleur. You then, what you got to do is make sure that you are going to push through, and when you push through, you will be left with an inner. Right? Now, if I was to cut the chain, I'm going to show you real quick, real close up.